With the announcement of the new Ted Lasso season, I took this as a sign that this Emmy-winning show should make it on my list of guessing plots of shows I have never seen. Yes, you heard it here, folks. I have never seen Ted Lasso. This may come as a shock, but seeing a poster of a middle-aged mustached man holding a soccer ball did nothing to pique my interest. Curiosity did not kill this cat. I don't even have a glimmer of what this show could be about, because if there's anybody that knows anything about sports, that person is not me. So, like all of my plot guesses, I've acquired various pictures on the internet of the show, and I will be putting together my own plot using just pictures. Nobody asked for this one, and I do write down your guys' suggestions, but this one in particular I feel really good about, so please just hear me out. And if you stick around to the end, I will even let you know what I think happens in the 4th season. Let's get started. Main character, Lasso. Ted Lasso to be exact. Ted looks like he's a soccer coach. And I see the United Kingdom flag a lot in these pictures, so I'm going to assume that he's a soccer coach in the UK. But I don't think he's from the UK. That would be too easy. So how did we get here? I'm guessing that Ted is actually from the United States. Back in the US, Ted has the perfect life in American suburbia. A wife, a child, some annoying neighbors, but you know, nothing a little smile and wave can't fix. Life is great. Until the company he works for goes out of business, causing Ted to immediately lose his job. Reasonably panicked, Ted is scrambling to find another job that will pay their bills. Let's just say that his wife, who we're gonna call Jamie, is a stay-at-home mom, so he is the sole income provider for the family. Yikes! No pressure. Ted applies to hundreds of jobs, and because of his high qualifications and skills, he actually hears back from the majority of jobs he applies for and is offered a great salary and benefits from each. Woo! Psych! Yeah. His situation is actually way more realistic than that. After getting ghosted from most jobs he applies for, or just lowballed on salary and benefits, Ted continues his desperate search and comes across a job listing for a football coach, and has flashbacks of playing football in his glory days in college. I'm assuming he's gravitated towards this position because he always dreamt of being a pro bro, but that dream is long gone. So next best thing is to coach, because if you can't do it, teach it. Or whatever the saying is. On a whim, he retypes a new resume for the job and kind of exaggerates his experience a little bit, you know, like none of us do, and applies for the job because, I mean, he's been ghosted by like every other job he's applied for, so what was the chances of him actually getting this job? Pretty much impossible. But it happened. I'm not gonna bore you with the small details, so let's get into the juicy stuff. Upon the acceptance of the job, he realizes that the job is stationed in the UK. Oops. He brings this up to his wife and she is blindsided by this, as one would be, and he's like, "You're telling me?" But the salary was way higher than any job Ted has ever had, and they're getting kind of desperate because they're about to lose their home, so they agree that he takes the job. I don't know why he didn't just try to stop being poor, but I guess this makes for a more entertaining plot. Worried about how this will affect their lives, I'm gonna say that they ultimately agree that Jamie and the kid, who we're gonna call Jackson, will stay behind in the United States. A long flight later, and Ted is now officially in the UK. Now, I'm going to guess that Ted has never been outside of the United States before, so he has a lot of adjusting to do. But one of the most important adjustments for him is that the day before he starts his job, he has some vague encounter that makes him realize that football in the United States is not the same as football in Europe. For those of you in Ted's shoes, football in Europe is what Americans would call soccer. And for those of you who need me to break it down even further for you, he accidentally applied to be a soccer coach. Oops. How he went through the job application, accepted the job, told his wife, and made it all the way to the UK without a single person mentioning this is strictly for entertainment purposes only. Please do not ask any questions. I mean, it's just soccer. How hard could it be, right? It's day one of being a soccer coach, so let's meet the team. Now, looking at the pictures, this doesn't look like a cutesy little community soccer team. This looks like an actual professional league. And from my understanding, soccer in Europe is like as big of a deal, if not bigger of a deal, than football is in the United States. And if I remember right, soccer is like literally the most popular sport in the world. And Ted's never played soccer, so he's about to dookie his pants right now. Upon arrival, Ted meets the owner of the team, who I believe is this woman, who we're gonna call Clarice. We're gonna get into her later, but all you need to know now is that she owns the team. Clarice then introduces Ted to the team as their new coach, and she goes on her way. During practice, Ted is analyzing the team, and from here, I'm gonna propose that the team is not a bad team by any means, but Ted realizes that they're lacking a lot of teamwork. The team has never won a cup, right? Soccer players playing cups? Anyway, so they got their ticket for the long way around, and they're really desperate to win one of these cups. So much so that this seems to be the only thing that the players care about. By the way, how's Mr. Lasso doing in his new position? Yeah, Ted over there? Not good. Ted doesn't have a lot of skill in soccer, but he notices that the team kind of lacks in cooperation, so he makes up for this by trying to place value in teamwork and good sportsmanship. The team is not accepting this rainbows and kittens coaching method and is seeing right through him. As much as he tries to play it off, the team can clearly see that he has no idea what he's talking about, because he's already set hook when he needs to be kickety split. And what's this Richmond way and we are Richmond? Is Richmond the name of the team? That doesn't sound like a soccer team name, but who am I to tell? Now, the pictures I found online seem to highlight one and only one particular player, and I mean, like, every team has an MVP, right? So I feel like it's pretty safe to assume from the pictures that that player is this guy, who we're gonna call Raphael. And in the most respectful way I can say this, he is the only player that I will be going into depth in on this plot guess, because all the other pictures from the show just have me believing that nobody else in the team really plays a major role in the plot. Getting into Raphael, I'm going to assume that he is not very pleasant to be around, and the team knows that they need him if they ever stand a chance of winning, so they just kind of let his attitude slide. In fact, I believe he's like the main bad apple of the group that kind of shifts the team's dynamic into being unhealthily focused on winning. Adding fuel to the fire, let's talk about this girl who, due to being conveniently placed next to Raphael in most of these pictures, I'm going to assume is his girlfriend, who we're going to call Kaylin. And yes, I assume it's going to be spelled as barbaric as you could imagine. Seeing the phone in Kaylin's hand gives me the impression that she's a full-time influencer, and not an influencer trying to make it. I believe that she's actually a well-known and established influencer, and she really uses that leverage in the most entitled ways throughout the show. Shocking as this may sound, nobody really likes her either. In fact, I think her and Raphael have an incredibly toxic relationship, and nobody really intervenes because they both are the problem, and everyone just kind of thinks that they deserve each other. Unfortunately, the team just kind of bends to her will to make her happy, because if Kaylin's unhappy, then she takes it out on Raphael, which then affects his playing, causing the team to lose games. Speaking of games, how are the games going with Ted as the new coach? They would probably be better if you like my video and subscribe to my channel, but my assumption is that they win some and they lose some, but mainly lose. And because of the importance the team places on winning, this is starting to diminish the team's morale, and they're starting to lose what little respect they had for Ted, as the idea of winning this cup is starting to look unlikely. Even with Ted's natural positive attitude, this is really starting to get to him, so much so that he requests to meet with Clarice to discuss resigning. And oh man, are y'all not ready for this one? Okay, so he opens up to Clarice about not knowing anything about soccer and being the wrong guy for the job. Clarice is fuming over this situation, and as much as she wants to be mad at Ted, it's actually a little deeper than that. Look, I can't describe it, but Clarice is exuding petty divorced woman energy, and sit down because we're about to find out a whole lot of information. She first explains to Ted that he can't resign due to the contract that he signed, but she didn't come up with this contract. In fact, she wasn't even the one that hired Ted. You want to know who hired Ted? Clarice's ex-husband. See, Clarice is actually recently divorced, and her ex-husband used to own two teams that played in the same league. As a way to get back at her ex-husband, she requested both soccer teams in the divorce. The judge ended up ruling a 50-50 split, meaning that her ex-husband would acquire one team and she would acquire the other team. But since she had no previous soccer managing experience, the judge ruled that she had to accept the conditions of the team that were already put in place by her ex-husband. But you think she's the only one that's petty? Because get this, before she officially acquired the team, her ex-husband deliberately hired Ted, knowing he was the wrong guy for the job, in hopes that this would tarnish the team's reputation and reflect poorly on Clarice. God, this is so juicy. So, due to the stipulations in the divorce, Ted can't quit, and she can't even fire him. Oh no. Adding this additional tidbit, but because this is a professional sports team, surely the media plays a part in the story, right? My assumption is that the team is receiving a lot of bad press, which is putting even more pressure on Ted. And he has to show up to like press conferences and interviews, but Ted has like zero public speaking ability and is not really professional about how he answers the media's questions. He's also really shy in front of the media, so he tends to freeze up and not know what to say as he's being bombarded with questions regarding the team's failures and if there's any hope to see the team make it to the cup. So the next day comes, and with no other option, Ted tries to pep talk himself into going out there and doing his best. But forget the pep talk, because things get worse. Because Kaylin is kind of superficial, I'm assuming that she breaks up with Raphael due to his association with the failing team, which is reflecting poorly on her reputation. All this drama causes Raphael to go deuces, and you thought the team's morale was low before. Buckle up. Ted is very aware that the team is feeling down about everything going on, so he shares some vague motivational story with the team in hopes to boost their confidence in playing together. The team doesn't want to listen, but look, what other choice do they have, right? So they go on to play their next game, and with nothing left to lose, they try to take Ted's word seriously. This emphasis in teamwork actually ends up pulling through for them, and they end up winning their next game without Raphael. The next day of practice, the team has a new wave of motivation, and this is the part where they start to see the value in what Ted was trying to teach them all along. And now it's time to make sense of another character that I keep seeing in the pictures of the show. From here, I'm going to assume that Clarice introduces a new character to us who we're gonna call Bill. Remember that contract that stated Clarice couldn't fire Ted?
Yeah.
Well, it never says she couldn't hire another coach. And Clarice is pissed because her ex-husband's team is on the path to winning the cup, so she's not gonna go down without a fight. So, in an effort to improve the team, Clarice hires Bill as an assistant coach, as he actually knows how to coach soccer. And just in case y'all ask me, I have no idea who this dude is, but he also looks like some kind of coach. But the way that he's portrayed in the picture makes me believe he doesn't really know how to coach, and that maybe he's some kind of coaching intern slash water boy who is just the comedic relief of the show. And that's all you're getting from me for that character, okay? So, with this news of receiving a new coach, Ted is getting this new wave of inspiration. In fact, I think Ted and Bill actually get along and work really well together as they each bring something different to the table. From here, I believe that the team sees massive improvement and starts to win more and more games. Morale is high, Clarice feels empowered, and media coverage is looking a lot better. Although, Ted is still kind of struggling with handling the media. In fact, I think he actually gets into trouble with some of his responses, but this eventually gets brushed under the rug as Ted tries to ignore what the media says about him. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, look who comes crawling back. Our little star player Raphael shows back up to practice one day, giving us some cheesy speech about how he misses being on the team, and how he doesn't know where he'd be without soccer, and how he's really coming to terms with Ted's values of teamwork. And they buy it. Ted and the team accept him back with open arms, but he really is showing a lot of character development as he's adopting Ted's values. They go on to win more games as they emphasize teamwork, while having Bill assist with the development of their skills. Speaking of things going great, you didn't think our little pick-me was gonna let the team have all the fun without her, right? Kaylin knows that with the team doing great, that this is going to reflect well on her reputation, so she asserts herself back into Raphael's life, and with them being the superficial toxic couple that they are, they get back together. But I will say this, Kaylin actually comes in handy as she's been noticing that Ted's having a hard time with press conferences, so she offers to media train him, and this actually improves his skills in handling the media. This reflects better on the team, which then reflects better on Kaylin, and even though there was an ulterior motive behind it, we accept it as a nice gesture. The team is having the comeback of the century, so much so that they actually stand a chance on making it to the finals. But don't get too comfy, because I haven't even filled you in on Ted's family yet. I think the distance is really hard on him, and with his job, it kind of makes it near impossible for him to go back to the United States and visit. But Ted is not the only one that's struggling. I'm going to assume that just before Richmond plays in the semifinals, that Jamie, Ted's wife, cheats on him and files for a divorce. This is so dramatic. This shatters Ted, and unfortunately with this information, he has to miss the semifinal game and go back to the US so he can go to court. In the court battle, he fights to win custody over Jackson, and because I want this to happen, and it's my plot guess and I can guess whatever I want, I'm gonna say that the judge miraculously grants it to him. But he loses the house to Jamie, along with many other meaningful possessions, and is battling a lot emotionally. Richmond ends up winning, and Ted should be excited about this, but he's just truly focused on his son right now. Jackson has a very poor attitude about moving to the UK, and Ted is feeling equally as guilty about making his son move, but eventually they accept it and they move back to the UK together. Without all the boohoo and whatnot, Richmond and Clarice's ex-husband's team are officially competing in the finals, and Ted makes it back in time to attend the finals. With his son, by the way. Please do not ask me the name of Clarice's ex-husband's team. Look, if you have to have something, I guess we can call it Fairchild. I don't know. This is the first time that we actually even get to meet Clarice's ex-husband, who I assume is this guy, and we're gonna call him Eugene. Okay, tell me if I'm wrong, but Eugene also looks really petty and not willing to go down without a fight, so we kind of get to see a little bit of sass between the two divorcees at the game. Speaking of the game, how did the game go? I think the directors did a classic, drawn-out, dramatic, slow-motion scene for the game, but ultimately, I think Richmond wins. I don't think it's one of those cheesy scenarios where they lose and they're all like, but it's not about winning, guys, because we have each other. Get out of here. Did I just roll my eyes out loud? I really think that they win, but in the end, they praise Ted for showing them the true importance of teamwork and that winning isn't the reward that comes with playing. So basically, I think that they still go through the cheesy feel-good stuff, but they just go through it as winners. Now, I promised I would tell you what I think happens in Season 4. Based on my own plot, I think Season 4 is going to go into more depth of Ted living in the UK with his son, and the difficulties of sharing custody over Jackson with his ex-wife Jamie. And oh my god, I don't want to say this because I just don't find it to be an appealing plotline, but I think Ted and Clarice start dating. And I think Ted and Jackson end up moving into Clarice's place.
What?
But they get upgraded to a real nice mansion. I believe that Ted has the freedom to leave coaching Richmond if he so chooses. And I think he actually does leave. But with his relationship to Clarice, he finds that he kind of misses the experience, so he ends up going back for round 2 as the assistant coach, while Bill is now the head coach. Anyway, let me know how close I was in the comments, and if there's any plot guesses you'd like to see from me next. Bye, G's!